Chapter 47. The Addams mansion was vast, shadow-draped, and strange enough to keep most people uneasy. But for the Hyde, it was paradise. Hunting was allowed on the grounds, and the house itself seemed to hum with the kind of energy only darkness could provide. Yet even paradise could sour with too much silence. With Wednesday and Pugsley back at Nevermore, the mansion now felt hollow, just 4 people moving through its echoing halls: Morticia, Gomez, Lurch, and Tyler. The Hyde pressed against the walls of Tyler's mind, restless. It's too quiet. Too still. No chase, no thrill. We need the outside world, Tyler. Tyler sat at the long dining table, tracing his finger along the grain of the wood. You like it here, he muttered. Don't lie. I do, the Hyde admitted, almost purring. But walls are still walls, no matter how grand. We weren't meant to sit still. The weight of isolation gnawed at Tyler more than the Hyde's hunger. Morticia and Gomez spoke to him politely at meals, but otherwise left him alone. Lurch, of course, didn't speak at all. Days blurred into each other, thick with silence and the ache of being shut away from the rest of the world. Talking to yourself already? Tyler jerked his head up. Uncle Fester leaned casually in the doorway, his grin wicked and unbothered. Good. Means you're starting to fit right in. Tyler let out a humorless laugh. I guess the mansion gets to everyone sooner or later. Depends, Fester replied. Some of us talk to ourselves for fun, others because we're dangerous. Lucky you, you're both. He came further into the room, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. Tell you what. You look like you're rotting from boredom. How about you tag along with me? Got a little job to do. His grin widened. Think of it as exercise. What's the worst that could happen? At Uncle Fester's words, a heavy thought crashed back into Tyler's chest: the court. Just a few days ago, a notice had arrived at the mansion. The judge was reconsidering his case. The original verdict had spared him. Since he'd been under 18 at the time, every charge had slid off his shoulders and onto Miss Thornhill, Laura Gates, the true mastermind. But now he was 18. No longer a minor, no longer shielded by excuses. The Hyde wasn't just a teenage mistake the court could sweep aside, he was a threat people whispered about in the open. There were rumors, petitions, fear. Citizens wanted him re-evaluated, tested, sent to Willow Hill for proper observation. To prove if he could be a functioning citizen or a monster that needed chains. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck, uneasy. I shouldn't, the court's already keeping tabs on me. If they think I'm slipping, they'll lock me up for good. Uncle Fester waved him off with a grin. Bah. Too much worrying makes you dull. I'm telling you, this one's easy. In and out. And you'll make a little money for your trouble. The word money flicked like a spark. Deep inside, the Hyde perked up. Finally. Something useful. We could buy her something. A gift for when she comes back for spring break. Tyler shut his eyes. Don't start. Why not? The Hyde pressed, sly. We're 18 now. No more foster system. Morticia and Gomez don't have to keep us here, they're only doing it for Wednesday's sake. Don't you think it's pathetic? Just sitting here, eating their food, waiting for the court to decide if we're human or not. Tyler's jaw tightened. Weeks ago, you wouldn't even let me do chores. Now you want me running odd jobs with Fester? The Hyde chuckled in his skull. That was when Cockroach was here. Things change. Don't forget our goal, we'll take the Addams name, marry Wednesday, and stand at her side. This family is loaded. How can we show face if we can't even provide for her? Tyler scoffed, heat in his voice. You sound more like Gomez every day. Now that's the spirit. Uncle Fester clapped his hands, clearly delighted though he'd only caught half the conversation. See? You'll never get anywhere if you're always thinking about the consequences. Stick with me, kid, I'll teach you the fine art of trouble. Tyler fell silent, staring down at the floor. He knew he should say no. But the Hyde was humming in his veins, restless, eager. And the thought of Wednesday coming back to find him idle, empty-handed, was unbearable. Tyler's throat felt dry as he forced the words out. "What's the job?" Fester's grin widened instantly, his eyes glowing with the kind of delight that promised nothing but chaos. "Simple," he said. "We're going to be stealing money from dangerous people who crossed me." Tyler stiffened. "Dangerous people?" "Couple of low-life drug dealers," Fester explained, as though he were talking about a pair of cranky neighbors. "They stole from me, and I don't take kindly to thieves. So we're going to pay them a visit, and take it back, with interest." Tyler blinked. "We're robbing a cartel?" "Cartel, schmartel." Fester flicked his wrist dismissively, then leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Remember the Addams family motto, kid, we gladly feast on those who would subdue us." His conscience lifted, twisted into something almost like relief. At least they weren't robbing a bank, that would drag in the authorities and bury him alive in the system again. But a cartel? That was dangerous, yes, reckless, terrifying. And strangely, it felt right. The Hyde trembled with excitement, his voice vibrating in Tyler's skull. Yes, finally. Real danger. Real freedom. Let's see how they like being hunted. Tyler's pulse hammered. He swallowed, but no words came. Fester only patted him on the shoulder, still grinning. "Don't worry," Fester said cheerfully. "By the time Wednesday comes back for spring break, you'll have a hell of a story to tell her." Tyler's heart clenched at her name, equal parts fear and longing. The Hyde only laughed, drunk on the promise of chaos. Chapter 48. The roar of New York City swallowed him whole. The moment Tyler stepped out of the cab, the air pressed heavy against his skin, thick with exhaust fumes, the burnt tang of hot dogs, and something acrid he couldn't name. The skyscrapers stretched impossibly high, steel and glass shimmering under the late afternoon sun. He craned his neck until it ached, his reflection winking back at him from a dozen mirrored windows. He had spent his life in Jericho, a tourist trap of a town where the biggest building was the church steeple, and then in Westfield, New Jersey, a charming place practically owned by the Addams family. But this was overwhelming. The city hummed and rattled like a living machine. "Keep up, kid," Fester called, already striding ahead, his coat flapping like a bat's wing. Tyler followed, his ears assaulted by the cacophony, car horns blaring, sirens wailing somewhere in the distance, voices clashing in every language he couldn't quite place. He dodged a man selling watches from the inside of his jacket and skirted around a woman stirring something unidentifiable in a dented pot set on the sidewalk. The stench of grease and rotting trash clung to the back of his throat. The longer he walked, the more the glitter of the skyline dulled. People huddled in doorways, their faces gaunt and eyes sunken. Cardboard signs begged for change. A child tugged on his mother's sleeve, pointing at Tyler with wide, hollow eyes before being pulled away. Jericho had its squatters too, but they were tucked away, hidden behind the tourist shops. Here, suffering spilled out onto the streets, unavoidable. Tyler's stomach turned. This place is different. Fester's grin didn't falter. "Oh, you'll get used to it. Every city's a feast if you know where to bite." Hyde licked his lips in Tyler's head, trembling with anticipation. Listen to them, the heartbeat of millions. So loud, so close. Imagine what we could do here, Tyler. Imagine the chaos. Tyler clenched his fists, trying to block the rush of adrenaline. But the Hyde was already awake, thrumming with energy, hungry to taste the city that never slept. And as they slipped into a crumbling brick safe house at the edge of Manhattan, Tyler remembered a few days ago when the announcement at breakfast had hardly landed before Morticia's lips curved into a nostalgic smile and Gomez clapped his hands in delight. "You'll do splendidly," Morticia said, her dark eyes gleaming. Why, Wednesday was once Fester's most trusted little accomplice. Gomez's chest swelled with pride. "Ah, mi querida Nina. Getaway driver, lookout, even the occasional distraction for the police. Those were glorious days." Hyde stirred inside Tyler, a ripple of laughter curling through his veins. Tyler snapped back to reality when Uncle Fester opened the door. The room smelled of ink and burnt coffee. Tyler followed Uncle Fester inside and froze at the sight of the table, stacks of forged passports and driver's licenses spread out like a card shark's hand. "Tyler," Fester said, his grin sharp. "My new protégé." The man behind the desk looked Tyler up and down. Tyler extended his hand, the long black trench coat he already wore falling around him like a shadow. The man gave it a quick shake, still sizing him up. "Better," the man said at last. "At least you don't look like a tourist." Fester chuckled. "Told you, kid, black makes you vanish. Easier to hide, easier to run. Just don't get caught standing under a streetlight." The man motioned toward a white backdrop pinned to the wall. "Stand there." Tyler did, blinking at the sudden flash of the camera. The man muttered something under his breath while adjusting the focus, then snapped a few more shots. "Come back in a couple days," he said. 6 driver's licenses. 6 passports, Fester said without hesitation, slapping a fat wad of cash on the desk. The man raised an eyebrow, smirked, and tucked the money away. "Anything else?" "Yeah." Fester leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Where can I find Hector Morales?" The man hesitated. Tyler noticed his fingers tighten on the edge of the table before he finally scribbled an address onto a scrap of paper. Fester slid him another stack of bills and plucked it from his hand. It didn't take long before 6 crisp IDs and passports were lined up on the table, Tyler's face staring back at him in 6 different names. "Use them interchangeably," Fester instructed as they walked out. "Switch them often. Never get too comfortable." Tyler tucked the IDs into his coat. The car rumbled to a stop in front of a rundown warehouse. Rusted panels sagged on the walls, graffiti covered the doors, and broken windows looked like hollow eyes staring back. Uncle Fester leaned back in the driver's seat and cackled. This dump is their hideout? Oh, Hector, you've really downgraded." Tyler said nothing, his long black trench coat already hugging his frame, boots clicking against the pavement. His pulse thudded in his ears. Fester hopped out, crunching over gravel. He spotted the old fuse boxes clinging to the wall. "Well, this is convenient." He cracked his knuckles. A ball of crackling blue lightning hissed to life in his hand. Zotzap. The fuse box exploded in a shower of sparks. Instantly, the building went dark. "Showtime." Fester smirked, climbing the fire escape. The metal steps groaned and screeched beneath their weight. Tyler followed, the hide stirring eagerly in the back of his mind. Inside, the corridor reeked of stale cigarettes and chemicals. The sound of dripping water echoed off the walls, drip, 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 as Tyler moved through the shadows. He found the room where the cash was kept. The smell hit him first, sweat, alcohol, and the metallic tang of fresh bills. The dealers inside turned, startled. The hide stirred violently. Tyler's trench coat slipped from his shoulders with a shiver. Bones cracked and twisted, snap. Crack. Pop, as he transformed. His yellow eyes burned in the dark, teeth bared in a feral grin. Thump. Crash. Screams. The drug dealers barely had time to react. Gunfire echoed, bang. Bang. Bang, but the hide was faster. Limbs snapped, bodies slammed into walls, crunch. Splat, until silence fell, broken only by the steady drip of blood. With the carnage complete, the hide grabbed his trench coat as shifted back to Tyler, kneeling to shove bundles of cash into bags. Meanwhile, Uncle Fester moved through the dark like a phantom. Men shouted Hector's name, then screamed. Zotzop. Each one lit up as Fester's electricity coursed through their bodies, dropping them in twitching heaps. Finally, Hector himself staggered out of the gloom. "Fester," he started. "Still running cheap scams, Hector?" Fester grinned, then raised his hands. "KZZZZZZT." Hector's scream was cut short as the current ripped through him. When Tyler and Fester regrouped, 4 bags of money sat heavy on the floor. The corpses, twisted and shredded, were scattered like broken dolls. Hyde's voice rattled in Tyler's throat. "We're done here. Leave them." Tyler forced himself forward, shoving against the Hyde. "No, we can't. Look at them. Bodies like this? It'll scream monster. They'll come after us." Hyde snarled, eyes flashing. "They're already dead." Before the argument could spiral, Fester whistled. He plucked a half-empty bottle of vodka from a table, unscrewed it, and poured it liberally over the corpses. The sharp stench filled the room. "Relax, kid." He rifled through a pocket, pulling out a lighter. Click, FOM. The flames roared to life, racing over the alcohol, devouring the bloodied remains in a hungry blaze. Tyler shielded his face from the heat as Fester hefted the bags. "No body, no monster. Just another gang fire." Tyler quickly changed into clean clothes he'd stashed away, stripping off his blood-spattered shirt. When Fester returned to the car, Tyler was already waiting. The bags thudded into the trunk, thump, 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 thump. Fester climbed behind the wheel, grinning wide as the flames crackled in the rearview mirror. "Nothing like a family bonding night, huh?" The engine roared. The warehouse shrank behind them, consumed in fire and smoke, as they vanished into the night. Chapter 49. When Uncle Fester suggested they go shopping, Tyler thought maybe a pawn shop, or at worst some seedy back-alley stall. He wasn't prepared for this. The so-called black market turned out to be a gleaming underground mall, polished marble floors, boutique storefronts lit with cold neon, and glass displays lined with contraband that looked more curated than criminal. Tyler's jaw slackened. "This is cleaner than half the malls in New Jersey." Hyde stirred, amused. "Our kind of place. Pretty veneer hiding rotten guts." They drifted past rows of counterfeit passports and crates of weapons before Hyde shoved Tyler down, taking control. His steps changed, smoother, sharper, as his gaze locked onto a shop filled with encrypted phones and sleek laptops humming with power. A woman in a black suit glided forward, her smile polite but edged. "Looking for something specific?" Hyde's grin spread slowly. "Something that can break someone out of a mental asylum." Her brows flicked upward, but her composure never cracked. "Which asylum?" "Willow Hill," Hyde said. "The most secure cell." For a heartbeat she only stared at him, then sat at her desk. Fingers flew over the keyboard, and a printer came alive with a hiss. Sheets of crisp blueprints slid out. Hyde snatched them up, eyes glowing with delight. "Beautiful. I'll need a computer. And a phone. Upload the files." She tapped the counter. "Encrypted MacBook. Encrypted iPhone. Firewalls tough enough to keep you buried in shadows. You crash one of these, you deserve the prize inside Willow Hill." She slid a USB across the table, silver glinting under the light. Hyde held it up, admiring it like treasure. "Does this also open doors beyond Willow Hill? Information off the books?" The woman studied him, a trace of amusement at the corner of her mouth. "You're a demanding one. But information? It's everywhere, if you know how to dig." She set down another laptop, almost ceremoniously. "Here's a free tip, just Google it." Hyde barked out a laugh, dark and sharp. He reached into his trench coat, produced a thick envelope, and tossed it onto the counter. 10 grand. Wrap it up. Quietly. The clerk nodded, slipped everything into a plain black duffel, and pushed it forward. Hyde slung the bag over his shoulder, blueprint clutched tight. For a fleeting second, Tyler surfaced in his own mind, horrified. "What have you done?" Hyde's smirk curled like smoke. "Exactly what we've always wanted." Tyler and the Hyde bickered endlessly as they stalked the darkened corridors of the black market mall. It wasn't anything like what Tyler imagined, no cramped stalls under buzzing lights, no sweaty merchants hawking stolen goods. Instead, the place looked like a twisted upscale shopping center, boutiques behind tinted glass, velvet curtains, and guards at every corner. And still, not a single antique shop with medieval torture weapons. Pathetic, Hyde sneered. If these people don't sell an Iron Maiden, what good are they? Tyler rubbed his temple. We're not buying her an Iron Maiden. His patience was thinning. We just need something for Wednesday, something she won't throw back in my face. That's when he spotted it, a jewelry boutique tucked between a weapons gallery and a stall selling vials of glowing liquid. He sighed, resigned, and pushed the door open. The saleslady glanced up, her eyes narrowing as she noticed him muttering to himself on the security monitor. Tyler plastered on a smile just as Hyde shoved against his mind. Excuse me, she said carefully. May I help you? I'm looking for something for my girlfriend, Tyler replied smoothly. She studied him, then reached into a display case and pulled out a bracelet. Girls love these. Charm bracelets. Very popular. Hyde surged forward, his voice curling out of Tyler's mouth in a low growl. Cheap trinkets. She wouldn't wear that even in her grave. He sneered at the jewels, and the saleslady froze, startled at the shift in his tone, his eyes. Tyler wrestled Hyde back, forcing another smile. Sorry. Not her style. My girl's different. She writes on a typewriter, prefers vintage things. Hyde shoved again, smirking. She comes from old money. Jewelry bores her. The only necklace she wears is obsidian. Unless you've got cursed jewelry lying around, you're wasting our time. The saleslady blinked at the word cursed. Her expression changed, cautious, calculating. Without a word, she returned to the case and slid out a tray. On it gleamed a silver brooch, an antique bracelet with black obsidian, and a massive diamond ring. Tyler picked up the ring, his brows knitting at the price tag. A few thousand? That's it? For a stone this size? The woman's smile was faint, unreadable. It was authenticated yesterday. Still. I wouldn't recommend buying a ring unless you're ready to propose. Tyler quickly set it back down. What else you got? This, she said, lifting the obsidian bracelet. Obsidian for protection. Old-world craftsmanship. Rare. I'll take it, Tyler said quickly. And the ring, Hyde cut in, wresting control. His grin was feral, eyes glinting. The saleslady hesitated, just for a beat, before nodding and boxing them both. Her hands lingered on the ring's case. This one has a history. Be careful who wears it. Tyler slid several $1,000s in crumpled bills across the counter. No cards, no questions. The woman tucked the boxes into a black velvet bag, discreet, almost ceremonial. As Tyler walked out, Hyde whispered smugly inside his head, "We are planning to marry her." Tyler followed the salesman's gaze to the gleaming black 1965 Mustang. Its chrome caught the dim lights of the black market showroom like fangs in the dark. Kid, what do you think? Fester grinned, hands shoved into his trench coat pockets. Tyler tilted his head, studying the muscle car. Looks like something Gomez would drive straight through a cemetery for fun. Exactly. Fester barked a laugh. Without another word, he tossed a jangling set of keys into Tyler's hands. Tyler blinked. Wait, what? Uncle Fester, this is yours, Fester said, sliding into the passenger seat like he already owned the place. I hope you don't mind, I used a little portion of your cut to buy it. Figured it'd sting your pride less if I said it was technically your money. He shoved a crisp registration slip at Tyler. Tyler stared at the keys, then at Fester. You bought me a car with my own money? Fester smirked. Welcome to family business, kid. Sometimes you win a little, sometimes you lose a little, but you always ride in style. When they returned to the Addams mansion, Fester lugged in 2 stuffed duffel bags while Tyler carried one heavy and one half full. They had agreed to split evenly, but with Tyler's Mustang and his earlier purchases, his haul was noticeably lighter. At dinner, Morticia poured wine as Gomez carved into a roast shaped suspiciously like a bat. My dear, Do you see how naturally crime runs in his veins? Fester announced, clapping Tyler on the back so hard the boy nearly choked on his drink. Morticia's lips curled in approval. A natural indeed. You'll make a fine husband for Wednesday. Tyler flushed. Thanks. But then his brow furrowed. It's just. I don't know where to keep the money. I can't exactly hide duffel bags in my closet forever. Gomez leaned forward, eyes sparkling. Young man, that's where the fun begins. Money should never collect dust, it should dance. Investments, stocks, portfolios. I have a few in mind you could sink your claws into. Like a cemetery chain, funeral homes, or guillotine stock patents. I'll even give you a crash course on how to make your fortune grow, Gomez added, twirling his mustache. Tyler managed a smile. Thank you, sir. I'd like that. In the back of his mind, the hide whispered hungrily, imagine the power, Tyler. Money breeding money. Soon, we'll be untouchable. Later that night, Tyler sat cross-legged on his bed, the two duffel bags laid out in front of him. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened the zippers. The smell of cash hit him like gasoline fumes. All right, Tyler muttered, pulling out stack after stack. Each bundle was tightly wrapped, hundreds in crisp $100 bills. The hide whispered in his skull, low and eager. Count it. Feel it. This is ours. Shut up, Tyler hissed under his breath, but he kept counting. He stacked 10 bundles. That was $100,000. Another 10. Another $100,000. By the time he was done, he had nearly $2 million total in those duffel bags. Then came the math. Minus $50,000 for the car, he glanced out the window at the Mustang gleaming in the moonlight. Another 20 for the encrypted computer and phone, plus, he picked up the small velvet box with the obsidian bracelet. And the cursed ring you just had to buy. The hide chuckled. An investment. She'll wear it when she's ours forever. Tyler ignored that and scribbled on a pad of paper. His hands tremble. 2 million minus 70,000 in expenses, leaves me with around $1.93 million. His chest tightened. Jesus. I've never even had 2,000 in my bank account before. The hide hissed. We're rich. And this is just the beginning. Think what we could buy. Think what we could take. Tyler shoved the last stack into the half-full bag, determination sharpening his features. All right. Tomorrow, I'll take that crash course. Chapter 50. Tyler hadn't expected breakfast at the Addams estate to turn into a masterclass in wealth. Between the black coffee, blood sausages, and Morticia trimming roses with their heads still attached, Gomez leaned across the table with a mischievous grin. So, Tyler, you wish to know where the Addams fortune comes from? He asked. Tyler shrugged. Well, yeah. You don't exactly seem like the 9-to-5 type. Huh. Gomez clapped his hands and sprang to his feet. Then come, my boy, into the study. This is no place for small talk. Wealth must be explained where it breathes. Before Tyler could protest, Gomez had dragged him into a cavernous study lined with dusty ledgers, swords, and framed stock certificates of companies long thought extinct. First lesson, Gomez declared, twirling his cigar. An investment strategy is not one size fits all. It is as personal as a duel, some prefer brute force, others finesse. Some investors live for risk, some cling to safety. What works for me may ruin another. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. The secret is knowing your appetite, your timing, and your tolerance for blood, sometimes literally. Then, with a flourish, he flipped open a ledger marked Tombstone Works Ltd. Take tombstones. Grim? Yes. Morbid? Absolutely. But consider, demand is eternal, people are dying every day. Yet, few entrepreneurs are willing to shoulder the ick factor. High demand, low competition. That, my boy, is my style of investment. He spun on his heels and jabbed his cigar toward another ledger, Salinas Salt Mines. Salt. Not glamorous, but indispensable. Humans need it. Industry needs it. Entire economies were built on salt, wars fought for it. To me, that is beauty, an old, steady market with no risk of vanishing. Finally, Gomez pulled out a photograph of a swamp crawling with reptiles. His eyes twinkled. And crocodile farming. Hunting them in the wild is illegal, poaching, frowned upon. But breeding them? Entirely legal. Their hides become luxury leather, their meat a delicacy, their teeth, souvenirs. It is the kind of business where society's disgust becomes my profit margin. Tyler sat back, stunned. It was no wonder the Addams family had wealth that seemed bottomless. Normal people, like his dad, worked decades to pay off a house and maybe retire with a pension. But Gomez thought differently. Tyler followed Gomez deeper into the study, his laptop tucked under his arm. He had expected another lecture, maybe more ledger flipping, but Gomez was already clearing space on the massive oak desk. Sit, my boy, sit. You learn best when your fingers are on the keys, not just your ears on my words. Tyler set down his laptop and booted it up. The glow of the screen looked almost out of place against the ancient books and medieval weaponry surrounding them. Gomez leaned over, cigar still smoldering between his fingers. How much do you want to put into your account? Tyler hesitated. I think, maybe 100,000? Excellent. Gomez exclaimed, pulling out a checkbook with a flourish. I'll wire it to your account. Just give me the cash later, and I'll tuck it away in the vault where it belongs. Tyler blinked. Wait, you're giving me 100 grand? Just like that? Of course. Investing without capital is like fencing without a sword. All thrust, no point. Gomez scribbled his signature with a flourish and slid the note across the table. Now, log in. Tyler opened the trading program Gomez had set up for him. Charts and flashing numbers filled the screen. He froze. Whoa. What even is all this? Ah, Gomez chuckled, draping an arm around Tyler's shoulders. This is the beating heart of capitalism, my boy. Do not be frightened, these squiggly lines and little bars. They are merely the emotions of millions of men, condensed into a picture. Beautiful, is it not? Tyler squinted at the candlestick chart. Emotions? That looks like chaos. Exactly. Gomez clapped. But chaos has patterns. See this here? He pointed at a candlestick with a long lower shadow. This is called a hammer. When you see it after a decline, it tells you buyers are taking back control. The market, like life, always leaves clues. Tyler scribbled notes furiously. Okay, hammer means possible reversal. Got it. But what about bullish and bearish? I keep hearing that. Ah. Gomez raised his cigar dramatically. The bull charges upward, optimism. Prices rise. The bear swipes downward, pessimism. Prices fall. Remember this, every trader is either wrestling a bull or running from a bear. Tyler laughed. That actually makes sense. Of course it does. Now, dividend investing. Gomez tapped another chart. These are companies that share their profits with you regularly, like a pension that feeds you for life. Safe, steady, perhaps boring, but dependable. Then, he leaned closer, eyes gleaming, there is hedging. Protecting your investments by taking an opposite position. A sword in one hand, a shield in the other. Tyler's pen barely kept up. He felt like he had entered college student, except he was the only student and his professor smoked cigars, waved swords for emphasis, and actually knew what he was talking about. Wait, Tyler said, looking at him suspiciously. I didn't think you even used computers. Doesn't Wednesday hate technology? She does, Gomez admitted, puffing smoke rings toward the ceiling. But I embrace it. Without this, he tapped the screen, my crocodiles would drown in paperwork, my tombstones would lose their polish, and my salt mines would turn to dust. Still, he gestured toward the shelf stacked with thick ledgers, I keep hard copies. One must never trust entirely what can vanish with a power outage. The lesson stretched for hours. By the time Gomez finally leaned back, Tyler's notebook was filled with sketches of candlesticks, scribbled definitions, and underlined phrases like chaos has patterns and shield and sword. Now, my boy, Gomez said, resting a hand on Tyler's shoulder, start small. A few thousand into stocks you believe in. Feel the thrill of gain, the sting of loss. The best teacher is not I, nor these charts, it is experience. After the first lesson ended, Tyler left Gomez's study with his laptop tucked under his arm and a notebook filled with half-legible scribbles. He carried them to the greenhouse, craving a change of scenery. Sunlight cut through the glass panes, scattering across the rows of carnivorous plants, but Tyler's eyes were fixed on the glowing screen. He stared at the endless tickers, the red and green numbers flickering like some foreign language. Gomez had told him everything, and yet, at the same time, nothing. Investment strategies, candlestick charts, dividends versus hedging, it was all still swirling in his head like a storm. He felt like someone had given him the entire blueprint to a city without telling him where to build the first brick. That's when Morticia found him. She glided into the greenhouse like a shadow, her presence soft but commanding. You look troubled, dear, she said, her voice smooth as silk. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck. I just don't know where to start. Mr. Addams explained so much, but I don't know how to actually apply it. Morticia's lips curved into the faintest smile. Sometimes the mind needs the body's help. Take a break, Tyler. Do something physical. Fencing, perhaps? Or a few lessons in martial arts? A sharp mind is wasted without a sharp blade to match it. Besides, her gaze lingered knowingly, you shouldn't rely too much on your monster form to get you out of trouble. Tyler opened his mouth to protest, but somehow, before he could form a sentence, he found himself following her down into the Addams' personal gym. It wasn't like any gym he had seen before. Medieval racks of iron contraptions filled the room, strange pulleys, spiked training wheels, even a rack of maces neatly polished and lined up. The only modern touches were a pair of dumbbells and a punching bag that looked suspiciously patched up from previous incidents. Morticia, dressed in black as always, demonstrated with ease. She picked up a slender knife and flicked it at the target board with surgical precision, dead center, as if the knife had been drawn there by fate. Another flick, and a dummy bag split neatly down the middle. You may use this room however you like, dear, she said calmly, as though she hadn't just butchered a training dummy. And if your mind still aches for business knowledge, the library will be waiting for you. There are more lessons in its pages than even Gomez can give. She drifted away with her usual elegance, leaving Tyler in the silence of the gym. Over the next few days, he fell into a rhythm. He split his time between the library and the gym. When he was himself, he worked the punching bag, venting his frustration with each swing. But when the hide slipped through, things were different. It tested the other equipment, spinning maces, weighted chains, the knives Morticia left behind. The hide didn't just use them, it mastered them, as if instinctively drawn to the art of weapons. And slowly, Tyler noticed something strange. When he came back to himself, some of that skill remained.